Let's get going. Okay, a little bit about myself first. I've got a Master of Arts in Professional Counseling degree from Liberty University in Virginia. I have advanced training in marriage counseling from the Institute of Gottman Institute near Seattle. I also have advanced training in trauma therapy and addictions. I work 32 hours a week in Bridgeway, which is Interior Health's only residential addictions treatment center. And then I have a private practice at my home office, and keeps me busy. Now, the purpose of this workshop is to introduce to you some skills so that you can have a better marriage relationship, especially in the communication department. Now, the purpose of the way we're going to achieve this is basically two things. One is become better friends. Okay? Second, how to handle conflict. Those are the two major ideas for these 4 weeks. The first 2 weeks, we'll probably spend more time on just becoming better friends and understanding each other. In the last 2 weeks, the skills for communication and conflict management, we could call it. Now, John Gottman, if you've never heard of him, he has been studying relationships scientifically for about 40 years. He has a condo on Lake Washington. He calls it the Love Lab. And in this condo, a couple will spend the weekend. And they're being observed through this two-way glass and video or something, and in all the living areas. And so they're observed for the weekend, and underneath their clothing they wear something that can communicate their heart rate and some important vitals. And then over time, these are longitudinal studies, Gottman follows these couples and finds out how they're doing and which one's divorced and whatever, and he puts all this information together. And so that's why he's able to write a couple of books. His latest one is called 10 Lessons, 10 Principles, 10 Lessons to Make Your Marriage a Better Relationship. And it's all based on his scientific studies. For example, he claims that he can predict a divorce with 92% accuracy by watching a couple fight for 10 minutes. That's something, isn't it? So it has to do with their vitals, their heart rate. It has to do with how they fight. Now, whether they fight, it all has to do with that. So let's get started. First of all, change needs to happen. I mean, you know, the definition of insanity is you keep doing it over and over the same way, but always hoping for a different result. Well, if nothing changes, then nothing will change. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So it doesn't take a big change sometimes just a small change, because like I've been told that if they shoot a rocket to the moon and they're off by like 1/10 of a degree, they'll miss the moon by hundreds of kilometers, okay? So if you make a small change, it gets wider and wider, the angle gets wider as you go along. So sometimes just a small change can make a great difference in the future of your relationship. So what are you going to do differently? If in this exercise, if in this workshop, these workshops, you can find a couple things to change, do differently, maybe a few things is what most people need, then that could be everything you need, okay? Now, some things that Gottman has found through his research is that on average, couples come for counseling 6 years too late. So I like to think of marriage counseling, marriage workshops, reading a book together on marriage, any of these ways of giving yourself information. It's kind of like taking your car in regularly for maintenance. We do that with our cars. Why not do it with our relationships? Like, I've got a couple that comes to see me once a year, and they just tune up. So why not a workshop this year, maybe do something different next year, or whatever. Tune your marriage up, just like you would your car. If you value your marriage, your relationship, because relationships take work, and so do cars. There's a good comparison there, I think. So, I have a friend who is a counselor, and he would like to tell this story, and it's like this. This guy had a neighbor, and his neighbor had a dog, and the dog would lay on the front porch and howl all day long. Finally, this guy got exasperated, and he went to his neighbor and he said, "Tell me, why does your dog lay on the front porch and howl all day long?" And his neighbor said, "Well, that's easy. There's a nail sticking up through the porch, and he's laying on it." "Well, why doesn't the dog move?" "I don't know. I guess it doesn't hurt enough." So why do people come 6 years too late? Because there's a law of pain that says unless the pain is great enough, you will not change. Unless the pain is big enough, great enough, you will not change. And so oftentimes when people finally find that pain too much and they come to counseling, it's way too late. I'm just going to throw a few ideas out here that Gottman talks about, that we're going to talk about. And just to get your curiosity, we're not necessarily going to talk about any of these today, but we will through the workshop. First of all, Gottman says that his research shows that this is on average. On average. So some couples more, some couples less, but on average, 69% of marital conflicts are unsolvable. Can't be solved. Whoa. So what do you do with those? That's more than 2/3. How do you handle that? Now, some less, some more, depending on certain things. And we're going to talk about how do we know what's solvable and what's not, and how to treat each one differently. Here's the second one. Your past relationships, including your relationships with your parents and ex-partners, are going to affect your present marital relationship. It's just going to happen. Talk about that later. Third, if your heartbeat or your partner's heartbeat is 95 beats a minute or more, you've got to stop the discussion, the fight, the argument, the dialogue, whatever it is. Stop it, because it's not going to help. It's just going to make things worse. And 4, whatever time you spend working on having a more quality type relationship, whether it's time in a workshop or time at home, this is more important. The practice that you do at home, that is equal to the equivalent amount of time working out at the gym on your physical health. That's right, your physical health. Your circulatory system, your digestive system, your immune system. We are biopsychosocial spiritual beings, and one aspect of us affects the other 3 aspects. So what you do emotionally with your relationship can affect you physically, spiritually. What you do physically can affect you emotionally. We are complex human beings. So let's get started. Now, I did send you some handouts attached to the email. And let's take a look at the handout I want to talk about first, the Sound Relationship House. So this is a model of how relationships go. And we'll be following some of this or most of this model over the next few weeks. So it's a metaphor, a model, a metaphor. So you look at it and there's a 7-story house. Well, that's not too realistic, but nevertheless, the first 3 stories or the first 3 levels of this house are the equivalent of a foundation to a house, a foundation. So we know that a house has to have a strong, firm foundation to build on. Like the Bible story about the person who built the house on the sand versus the person who built the house on the rock. The one on the sand didn't have a firm foundation, and the storm came and down it went, right? So these 3 levels are the foundation of a strong or a sound house, a relationship house. Notice that level 4 is called a positive perspective. If the first 3 levels are working, if you are working the first 3 levels, because the first 3 levels are all things you do daily, weekly, monthly, if the first 3 levels are working, your relationship will be in the positive perspective. If you're not attending to the first 3 levels, if they're not working, you're not doing much about them, your relationship will be in a negative perspective. And here's the deal. If your relationship is in a negative perspective, you'll be able to manage conflict, make dreams come true, and create shared meaning in your relationship. But if it's in the negative, you won't be able to manage conflict. You won't be able to make your dreams come true. You won't be able to create shared meaning if it's in the negative. So this house takes care of itself if you have a strong foundation. All right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to cover the first 3 levels of this house. We're going to give you some exercises to do, which are going to take time. Time heals nothing, but work over time heals things. There's no magic pill here. You're not going to get fixed by one workshop. I'm going to give you the tools, and you stay faithful to using these tools over the next weeks and months. You will turn your relationship around. You will improve your relationship. So, we have to think of it this way. Here is a piece of paper. It's untainted. It's not folded. But watch this. If I take this piece of paper and I make a crease in it by folding it, now we would say the paper isn't the same as it used to be. It's damaged. Okay? Now if I want to put this paper back to way it started, I can't just put this in my book, close the book and bring it out again, because look at it. It's a little better, but it's still got a crease in it. If I am going to repair this damage, I am going to have to take the time and the effort to not just go back to normal, what normal would be, but to overextend things and do things even radically different for a time to bring that back to what it should be. Okay? So I have to overdo things for a while to make my relationship come back to what it should be. After I overdo things for a while, I can come back to the middle and just keep things going that way. Don't go back to nothing like you've been doing, but come back to a reasonable amount of time and energy. So you're going to have to take a lot more extra time and energy for the next few months to get this relationship back on normal. And if that's happening, you need to seek some, not happening after that time, you need to seek some help. So we're going to start with level 1. And level 1 is principle 1. Enhance your love maps. Enhance your love maps. Now, couples who are successful are intimately familiar with each other. They know each other's inner world. They know each other's outer world. And a love map is simply this. It's the detailed information stored in your brain about your partner. Getting to know your partner inside and out. Inner world, outer world, and it's all up here. You have a love map. And you must be continually updating these love maps with time. So, for instance, getting this love map in order, one would need to know all the major events in your partner's life that have been significant to your partner's life. And of course, those major events keep coming through the years. So you need to keep updating those major events that have influenced or made a difference in your partner's life. That's a biggie. But it could also be something very simple, and it includes all of this. If she orders him a salad at the restaurant, she knows to ask for the dressing on the side. You see? If she's late coming home from work, he knows to record her favorite TV show. Or she knows how he feels about his boss. He knows that religion is very important to her. She knows that he has a fear of becoming like his father, and he considers himself a free spirit, etc., etc., etc. You see where I'm going with this? Information about your partner, inside and out. So, Gottman is a big believer in rituals, and I am the same way. If I don't make something a ritual, I just go by the seat of my pants or by when the spirit moves, spontaneity, I generally don't get things done. I have to put it in the calendar. I have to ritualize something. This becomes a habit, a routine. Make this a routine. Make some of these activities a routine in your relationship. So let's take the first one. Ritualize the process of date nights. Ritualize this process of date nights. A night, one night or afternoon or whenever you want to make it, each week devoted to time together without the children. Decide on the time, make it a permanent thing, and then declare it holy time, and don't let anything come to interfere with date night. So if someone calls up and says, I need your help with this and that, you can say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't this week. That's my date night. Okay? Sometimes there will be real emergencies. Real emergencies. In that case, don't cancel your date night. Just change the time and day, whatever you have to change. Stay with the date, but don't just cancel it. When you cancel something, next thing you know, you're canceling for other things and then more things. And pretty soon, you're just not doing it anymore. Ritualize date night. And on that date night, talk to each other. It's not just a movie where you don't talk to each other. I'm not saying don't go to a movie, but let's say you do. Well then, talk on the way there. Have dinner out and talk there. And maybe after the movie, talk on the way home or go for coffee and talk about the movie. Talk about what you learned about the movie. Talk about things that impressed you about the movie. Whatever it is. Have a conversation. Now, let's think of another ritual you could make. And I like to think of this, call it like when you part in the morning for work or whatever it is, and then at the end of the day when you have a reunion, you come back together again, you can have daily check-ins. For instance, what are you doing today? Before the person leaves or before you both leave, what are you doing today? And it might be the same thing every day. That's okay. Say, oh, I don't know, it's nothing new, same day, but at least you've asked. And then maybe something new will come up, like, oh, today I'm going to the chiropractor. Okay, whatever. At the end of the day, when you reunite, again, routine, ask about it. So how'd your day go? Or how'd that chiropractor treatment go? Say, tuck that up here, that special little thing for the day, and bring it to their attention. Ask, how did it go? That is really connection. You're showing that you're interested in your partner's life. So maybe nothing happened during the day. Yeah, it was nothing. Or maybe something did happen today. Oh yeah, my coworker so-and-so said this and that, and we did this, and whatever it is. Share it. Talk about it. It's just having fun talking. Now I realize that some couples have been, for so long they haven't had a decent conversation. Every time they talk about anything, weather, whatever it is, they get into an argument. They're in trouble. So this is a way, I'm going to give you an exercise that's a way to break that. But it doesn't matter where you are, at what level you are, if you're in the negative perspective, we need to do these exercises to bring things up so we can be in a positive perspective, okay? Now, I can tell you how you know you're in a negative perspective. Just think about your past, your history of your relationship. And often people have this negative history. They have rewritten their history. When I have couples in for my first night, when I do an assessment, I start to ask them questions like, when did you first meet, and what was that like, and how was dating like, what'd you do when you dated, and how did you propose, and how was the wedding, and how was the honeymoon, and what'd you do, and what happened when you had kids. I'm getting their history. And you would be surprised that some people, their history is nothing but negative. That's what they remember. Because they have a negative perspective today, so they see their past through that negative lens. So that's a good way to tell if a couple's in the negative perspective. Anyway, take a look at the first exercise that I have handed you. And this exercise is called the Gottman Love Map exercise. It's 3 pages. and it has about 62 different questions that you can use for this exercise. I'm going to call it a game, okay? So have fun. It's a game. Have fun. You get it? Have fun. But here's the rule. Here's the first rule. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. Rule number 1, it's okay to be wrong. Okay? Rule number 2, it's okay to be wrong. It is okay to be wrong. Rule number 3, you guessed it, it's okay to be wrong. Have some fun. Don't take this too seriously. What I'm saying here is this. If you're one of those couples that argues about anything all the time, you're going to have to really work on this. And you're going to have to tell yourself it's okay to be wrong. Don't get upset at your partner if they don't get the answers correct. This isn't a quiz that you pass or fail. This is strictly a way to talk about things and to get into the habit of having fun conversations with each other. Okay? So notice there's 62. That means if you did one every night of the week, it would take you 2 months to complete them. Now that's probably too, unrealistic. So let's say you did it 5 nights a week. It's probably going to take you almost 3 months to do this assignment. And that's awesome. But don't boil it down to something like once or twice every week. That's not enough. Remember the folding of the paper? You've got to overdo some things here to get your relationship back in a positive. Okay? So you're going to overdo. Now what you're going to do is only 1 question per night. Don't try to do a marathon. Don't try to do more than 1. I had a couple that did like a dozen in one night. By the time they did that, they were like, at each other. No. 1 per night. That's only going to take 5 to 10 minutes. Okay? Seriously. So here's how it works. Let's take the first one. For example, name your partner's 2 closest friends. Okay? Name your partner's 2 closest friends. Do rock, paper, scissors, whatever you got to do, flip a coin. Someone goes first. So whoever goes first looks at their partner and goes, I think your 2 closest friends are John and Bill. Now, don't stop there. That's not a conversation. That's only the beginning of the conversation. Now you talk about why you think that. What made you say John and what made you say Bill? So with John, you this and yada that, and whatever it is. And then Bill, because of this and this and that, and because you did this and he did that, whatever. Okay? Then you're done. And your partner goes, I think it's John, but probably not Bill. John, because you're right about this and this, and then add some of your own stuff about that and that. And then, but not Bill because this, not that, the other thing, but whatever. But Pete's the other one, and because of this and that and the other thing, you get what's going on there. You're having a conversation. Now you switch roles. The other person says, I think your closest friends are Betty and Sue or whatever, and you go through the same thing. You are not just learning what your partner's 2 closest friends are. That's just a little bit. You're learning what character qualities, what personality qualities, what is it you really value. You're learning a lot about your partner in this exercise. And it can be the same for foods or favorite flowers or whatever, okay? So the Gottman Love Map exercise, assigned. All right, what are the rules again? Rule 1, it's okay to be wrong. When your partner doesn't get it right, it's okay to get it wrong. It's just a conversation. Now, the next page I want to bring your attention to is one that has, it's a double-sided, and it says, turning towards during everyday events, checklist. What this is not necessarily a list of things to do on a date night, okay? That would be maybe another list. But some things to do besides a date night. Work together in the garden, or plan and hold a dinner party for some friends of yours, or take a long drive together, or whatever. Some of them could be dates, for sure. But here's the deal. You need to do things together. That's the point. Do things together. enjoy each other's company, enjoy the conversation. Remember, you're making best friends with each other. So sometimes we run dry with ideas. You know, the suggestion box is empty. Well, here's 60 some suggestions. Try some of them. Now, whether it's a date night or one of these other activities or both, if one person seems to fall into the role of always planning it, always being the one to buy the tickets, make the reservations, come up with the ideas, that person will eventually get bitter, and it's going to have this feeling like, you know, I'm the only one invested in this relationship. Why can't you do something with this relationship yourself? Why does it have to be me? So therefore, from the start, alternate or take turns. Like, I'll do it this month, you do it next month, or I'll do it the first and second week of every month, you do it the third and fourth week of every month, and the fifth week, or whatever. You know, ritualize it and take turns. Now, I would say, unless you're 100% sure that your partner wants to do this activity or go on this date night to this place or that place, run it by them ahead of time to make sure. For instance, honey, I'd really like to go to Celtic Thunder. It's coming at the, you know, Penticton Arena, yada, yada, yada. And would you like to go? No, I'm really not too fond of that style of music. Okay, let's find something else. What would you like? And you come to some agreement. But if you're 100% sure that your partner wants to go to see Celtic Thunder, book it and surprise it. Okay? Now, what else can I say there? Nothing, I guess, but take a look. This is another sheet for building love maps. One more sheet. And it's called Building a Real Map of Your Partner's Everyday Life. Now, these are more the central things in a person's life. Certain events and certain beliefs and certain things that are going on in your partner's life that you need to keep up with all the time. So you can put these in between some of those other ones, or when those other ones are all done, those 62 are all done, you got to come back to this quite often and do these ones. Okay? Building, enhancing,